guys, I'm back. And we are better than ever. Well, I'm not gonna lie to you. Good God, this new barbell is great. It is putting me where I need to be. It is locking in the technique a lot better. However, anytime you use new equipment, it's going to give you a good hit for a little bit. You're gonna have to really reevaluate and, in a sense, relearn certain parts of your technique. And what I really like the most about this new bar is obviously it actually has knurling on it. It has that good grip with the spinning sides of the barbell, and it feels way better and way more consistent when it comes to my pull and my catch. But I think the most difficult thing that I've run into with this is the old barbell was so damn whippy that without realizing it, I kind of inadvertently developed a dependence on that whippage, and not like I'm bumping it off my hips super hard or anything. The technique was still good, but that bar was just so fucking wobbly without the grip that I needed to keep it stable, to where I've gotten kind of used to letting my technique remain lesser over time with limited equipment, which is fine. I tell you guys all the time, the equipment is not going to stand in the way of me making progress, but it definitely can cause poor habits when it comes to what you want your technique to be long term, And so while the lifts may feel slower right now, it's more like the grip is so much more consistent that I have to manually pull through each of the third pulls, or of the three pulls, from the knee to the hips and then through the power position until I catch it, so that I have it actually consistent. And I'm used to just kind of ripping as hard as I can, which is not efficient, but that extra explosiveness has definitely gone a long way when it comes to being able to throw myself under the weight as fast as possible, regardless of me being able to hit it. And so while I'm more confident in my catch position now and how good I can pull through the weight, that original over reliance on that whip from the barbell has caused this bar to feel a little bit too manual at the moment. It's a work in progress. It's not like it's a problem. This is what it's supposed to be. Because for the most part, when you start using better equipment, I've had this happen before where I switch from a lesser bar to a better bar, and then I perform worse on the better bar. It is not because the equipment does not work with me. It is because I've never worked with said equipment. You have to learn how to properly do the technique and control the pacing, readjust your grip and whatever you need, so that you can long-term have the best growth throughout every program you run, So it's more like I've just been using this whippy bar for so long that I've developed the best technique I can with the limitations that were presented to me, So now, same deal. I like this bar more. The grip is more consistent, and it's going to be better long-term, but I have to get used to it still, I have to kind of force myself to slow down a little bit off the ground, because you guys remember, I used to rewrap my thumb tape constantly just to make sure I was fully confident in my grip not getting loose. That's no longer an issue, which is great. But regardless, I still have to really maintain enough grip to what I need to get it overhead. I tell you guys all the time, the grip, the speed, how much whip you put behind the bar, how hard you lock out, everything has to meet the speed, the efficiency, the power, the confidence, and the stability of what it needs per weight. You don't throw the empty barbell or the 95-pound warm-up I do like you would the 240 top set. You have to pace yourself, but hit just fast enough, but not too slow, right in that sweet spot, so that you can transition the proper technique along to each lift along the way. Because it's not like the heavier lifts are always easier to do technique-wise, because you have to grip and rip it as hard as you can. But it's the lifts going up to that. That's why I cherish my warm-up so much. It's the lifts warming up to that top weight that are so integral to hit as perfectly as you can, because it's so easy to overdo it or underdo it, And so I'm now pulling a little bit less efficiently, even though it feels stronger, So I just have to really make sure I get that timing right. Every weight went great, don't get me wrong. It's just new, I think I need to slow down the first pull just slightly while keeping my shoulders right over, just slightly. I think I let my shoulders come back like half an inch more than I usually do, and that caused it to land a bit hard on my elbows, because especially on the 240 set, again, went great. but it just looks off because it's not what I'm used to doing. But the catch is more consistent. I'm sitting more upright in the catch, which is great. I failed one attempt at it, but that was only because I cut the pole. I rushed through the third pole really quickly, and it just crashed on my elbows too fast for me to lock out. So I dropped it right away, relocked it back in, instantly hit the second rep, which is great. I love the ability to jump back into it and get it right on that moment. But the biggest thing I realized was that second rep, especially on my left elbow, where you guys know I have the bone growth on my left hand, and that causes its own sort of mini imbalance. And the less efficient follow through with the entire technique definitely made me land on my left elbow harder than I wanted to, and it was a good rep. It was explosive. I caught it right where I needed to, but I need to make sure I maintain the balance from the ground especially to my knees, not just from the ground to the hips, but I think one of the most important parts of the snatch and the clean and jerk is how you go from the floor to your knees. Because if you have your shoulders over the bar, you are on your midfoot balance-wise, and I'm not saying on the very middle of your foot, I'm saying where your ankle lines up with your foot. If your weight is on that midfoot area and your shoulders are over the bar, your chest is pushed through, there's no butt going up first. Everything's rising at the same time. There's no lack of strength where you should be able to hold it steady in that limited position. If you have a perfect first pull, it is so much easier to whip into the second and third pull. And again, I've always said this, if you have as perfect as a third pull as you can get, you should be able to catch in a perfect position every time, as long as you lock out right where you're supposed to. There's always, and as long to whatever you're doing in these sports. But seriously, if you have a solid pull from the ground, because one of the biggest things I see is new lifters especially will rip off the ground at 100% and then throw into it, and they always overthrow behind their head. And it's because you're ripping at 100% off the ground when you should be waiting to rip off the ground that strongly in your second to third pull. The first pull is basically a deadlift. It shouldn't be overly fast. It shouldn't be as explosive as the rest of the lift is, because you have to follow that through. And if you put all of your core explosiveness and your the pull in your arms from the ground to your knees, and that you have nothing left to whip underneath with it, then you are not only creating a bad habit and missing those top sets, but if you're doing that in your warm-up sets, it will create a horrible transition throughout the entire workout. You have to lock that in right in that moment before you even think about adding weight. But anyway, the snatches went great. Again, doubles this week, so 240 double, extremely happy with it. Every weight felt really good and consistent. It just feels a slightly more off to what I'm used to. I'm going to have to get used to where I'm catching and how confident I feel in those positions, because despite the equipment not mattering the largest amount in the long term, you still have to give it that attention and that effort for those first couple weeks, those first couple months, because you don't just get used to it by saying, oh, it doesn't matter what the fuck I use. Like if I came in and stopped wearing my squat shoes, of course I'd have to take time to get used to that technique. I could do it long term, sure, but it's those first few sessions where you really need to focus the technique first so that you can transition it later on without, again, like I said, relying on the inefficiencies of what other equipment you used to use or what you're currently trying to use. Because even though this bar will create better habits in the long term, I still have inefficiencies that can become poor habits from this better barbell. So I need to make sure that I really hammer those down and give them the attention and the redirecting they need to progress into as perfect of a snatch as I can make it be, But it's definitely coming. It was really nice to see, especially on my heaviest rep, how I could maintain my low back stability going to my knees. But it's if you guys have ever seen Klokov or Clarence Kennedy snatch, I'm finally getting to that point where I can let the weight kind of hang on my shoulders while I stand up, rather than putting all of it onto my leg drive and low back stability. And I can really pull way better with my shoulders and kind of again, that comes with the grip, I think, because I got baby hands. I already barely can grip the ends of my thumbs with hook grip. So being able to pull at that highest efficiency is allowing me to really let my shoulders hang with the bar and then relock everything back into my back as I go into my hips, Because it's kind of good to deviate how much effort you want to put in on either side of your body, Because if I go too hard on my low back or my quads rather than my shoulders off the ground, then I may overpull it when I try to relock it back in the first place, or I might not have enough energy to even hit the power position, But anyway, other than that, overhead squat, really, really tough. I'm not going to lie. That's definitely going to be a weight that plateaus quicker than the others. This is the first cycle after hitting my new peak, you know? So I have now progressed past my old progress before my knee exploded, all that, other injuries, whatever. And I'm now in the territory of new progress. We're at definitely a higher risk of injury or fucking up. But the biggest thing is I'm at the highest risk of plateau, which is a good thing. I want to plateau if my body can't do it and then realign the technique again on the next cycle. But I'm in that middle area where I don't know what my limitations are right now. I don't know where I'm going to cap out. And today, got up to a 290 triple. Oh, brother. It was so hard. It really took me out. The stability, especially after, again, I increased the volume on the Olympic lifts this cycle to really maintain my core balance, and that'll transfer over way better next program cycle when I've got the conditioning already down. This is my first time getting back into that in a long time. So it's definitely going to hit some lifts more than others, which sucks, but that's the conditioning that I want to commit to for the sake of my technique and my consistency and the confidence in my core in general. And after the Olympic lifts hit me pretty hard, the lockout and then the stability of my elbows and shoulders in the overhead squat were so damn difficult to hold through. But we did hit the top set, which is great, but you're going to see it, like the amount of slow tempo I put behind that bar was abysmal. You know, it was good technique. I locked it out. I kept it as strong as I could, but I definitely would like to be able to see myself going just slightly more, not even faster, because I don't want to just go fast. I want to have a consistent tempo between every rep. You know, the first one was much quicker than the second two, and that third rep was as slow tempo as it gets because my elbows and my shoulders were not stable enough to hold it that way. But again, we're in that middle area. I hit it, so next week we will do the weight that we programmed for the peak weight, but you know, we're going to get to that area where if it really starts getting heavy next cycle, we are not going to push it, you know, because there's no point in trying to hit new weight every cycle. You're going to plateau. So let yourself plateau safely so that you can progress beyond it the moment you get that conditioning, that core confidence, and that especially joint stability in the lift. The next cycle, you do those same weights again. Snatch pull, really good, honestly. I incidentally recorded the last weight in a slow-mo video. I put it back at the same play rate as the other ones. Like I took the slow-mo off, but it definitely decreased the quality a little bit, so whatever. But it was actually kind of cool to be able to see my snatch pull in slow-mo because it really shows how consistent my form has gotten. You know, and I always say this, the snatch pull is one of the best things you can look at to see where your inefficiencies are in the pull before catching a snatch. And it looked really good. And so even though I feel a little off and I don't feel as, you know, not even as strong, I feel different because of the new equipment and the new way I'm having to pace myself through these lifts. But especially seeing the snatch pull at every point, there was no, you know, every part of my body was going up at the same time. I let my shoulder stay with the bar just long enough to whip into it. I came up through my hips with my toes instead of pushing forward off my toes. You want to just be able to come straight up off the ground like you're jumping completely vertically. And there wasn't a single deviation from what I could tell. So the snatches are probably better than what I imagined them to be. I just need to have a full program cycle to get used to the conditioning, used to the new pacing, the new technique in general. And then next month, I think it's going to be a different ballgame. I think it's going to be a lot more powerful, a lot more consistent. And, you know, as always, more and more passionate every single time. So I'm going to accept my, you know, previous over-reliances on that that increased whippage on that barbell, and I'm going to try to transfer as much as what I learned from that as possible to this. Because similar to how I transferred my bench over, I went from using the Olympic barbell to the stiff barbell last program, and even though the stiff was better, it was still different. I still had to get used to that kind of stability and that different kind of drive. And I'm so used to exploding off my chest with the Olympic barbell. And even though the Olympic barbell made it turn in my wrist more than I wanted to and made my elbows get a little fucky in the heavier weights, it was still really good long term when it comes to how stable my bench was because of that overturning in my wrist at the heavier weights. You know, being able to hold a good balanced bench press with how close I go for how long my arms are with an Olympic barbell, it's going to transfer really well over to a stiff bar. So that's why I made so much progress so quickly. You know, so I got to take what I learned from the previous equipment, put it into this one and create a new form of technique that supersedes all of it, you know? But anyway, physically, I went through it, but we hit every single weight, and we hit every single weight well. So even though I don't feel as I typically do, you know, I'm still figuring out my body with all this stuff. The weights went really well. The weights went really, really well. So I'll give it a 9.1, just over the threshold. Again, I can't sit here and tell myself it went poorly, because it didn't. I was just tired for the most part. And again, it's just heavy. It's supposed to be burning me out. It's supposed to be hitting me like this, because either I'm getting close to a plateau or I'm getting close to a peak. And either way, I have to push through the weights that I've earned the attempt at to see where I'm at. You know, take it one day at a time. Don't stress too much about the future or whatever. Just focus in the moment and commit to it while you're there. Mentally, easily got to give it a good 9.4. It's been great recently, honestly. It's been really, really fun. Lots of great homie support as always. I actually had like a really great sit-down conversation with some of my good homies at the house, and we just, I'm telling you, the conversations you have with the people you love the most, where you can just sit there and conversate for 5 hours without realizing it, it's like no other. You know, I'm going to CC's tonight with them. We're going to get that unlimited pizza buffet. Buddy, I am so excited for the random ass behaviors we are going to be expressing. It's nice to be able to get kiddish again, you know? We're all kids in a grown-up adult body, so, you know, the more we mature, we grow up, we get smarter, you know, more intelligent, more efficient, but everybody still feels that inner joy and that freedom when it comes to just allowing yourself to let go sometimes, you know? Really give into what you feel that you've earned through the hard work that you put in your typical daily life, you know? So yeah, I'm gonna go to a fucking pizza buffet and eat my heart out with some shit food with the homies, because damn it sounds like fun. You know, that's the biggest thing. Following that impulse sometimes can be one of the best things you can do for yourself, because damn it, everybody needs to get out at some point. And if you, just like with your opportunities in work and life, they come at random. You gotta jump at them when they're presented to you, and you gotta go as hard as you can in that moment and not let it pass you by. Same thing with the homies, man. Not everybody's going to be around forever to hang out. Not everybody's going to be as free as they are today. So if you're getting invited out and you're saying, no, I'm tired, I just feel like doing nothing all day, I get it, but damn it, man, looking at the wall and doom scrolling on your phone is not going to make you feel any fucking better. So might as well go out, just show up for 20 minutes, shoot the shit, and then go home, and I guarantee you it'll change your day. But every time someone does that, you start talking, you get excited, you get passionate, you start loving all the people around you, and you end up staying out for 5-6 fucking hours. One way or another. I'll be back tomorrow. I got clean and jerk accessory with the heavy back squat. I think I'm going up to 420 tomorrow, so that's going to be an experience. But I'm excited to actually start increasing the weight on squats to where they used to be when I was doing a much more set volume-based program. But one way or another, making progress every day. I'm going to be back just as passionate as ever. Loving life just as much as I can. Appreciate y'all hanging out, listening to me yap. Let me know how the listen live's been going. Love hearing about it, and I love you guys. I'll see you later. Bye.